All right, Representative Hefner, thank you for being here with me today. We've talked about daylight saving time in the past, but now Senator Bencourt, Republican from Houston, has filed two bills, both, effectively trying to do the same thing, put a
Yeah.
constitutional amendment before voters so they can choose whether they prefer daylight saving time or standard time. Your thoughts on the proposed legislation?
I would support it. When you talk to people out in the community, nobody likes to change, but they're kind of split on whether they like standard time or daylight savings time. And so the state has the authority to go to standard time, but for us to go to daylight savings time, it takes federal approval, is my understanding. But uh, you know, uh, I get aggravated with the time change, gaining an hour, losing an hour, the daylights at the end of the day or the first part of the day. And so, but I would be happy with just picking, one and staying with it. And maybe this is the best way to find out, what the citizens prefer. But generally, people don't like the change. And then, there's some preferences on which way they want to go. So, uh, anyway, it'd be interesting to see how it works out, and I'd like to see us stick with one or the other.
Is this, the type of bill that is this what you want to see, or is there other types of legislation regarding daylight saving time you think should be put forward?
It's complicated because it's hard to know what the people want, and so maybe this is the best path, the best option, so that we get a good picture of what the majority of the people would prefer. I have my personal preference. I'm not strong on that, and so I'd be willing to hear what the people want and then try to make that happen. And like I said, it'd be easier to go with standard time than it would be daylight savings time. But man, I think it's kind of an outdated thing that we do, changing the time, and we ought to pick one or the other and stick with it, and just have that continuity, that consistency.
I remember when we spoke the last time about this, you mentioned this is something you hear from constituents a ton. Now that we're
Yes.
a couple months into the legislative session, is that still the case?
It depends on where you are, but yeah, I mean, I was with Congressman Moran yesterday, and we were talking about this as you texted me for this interview. And he said he's done some surveys on it, and this is one of the top issues that people respond to, wishing that we could change. And so the tricky part, and a lot of times when you get in this building, this Capitol building, people get nervous about which way the citizens want to go, and that indecisiveness, kind of paralyzes us, and we don't really move either one. So I think I would support what Senator Betcourt is doing, and so we can put it out there and let the people choose and then try to make it happen.
Walk me through a bit about that conversation you had with Representative Moran. Is this something that you could see happening at the federal level as well?
It's something that's been talked about up there a lot, but you know how it is in Washington. It's hard to get things moving up there. There's so many of them across our diverse nation, and so we were just talking about the challenges, the political challenges with it, and then just kind of the people's opinions on it and how strong they are. And so yeah, we were in Senator Hughes' office, me and Senator Hughes and Moran just sitting there talking, and this came up when you texted me. It's kind of a strange coincidence, but yeah, I think it's interesting conversation. I'm confident that someday we'll do something with it, and hopefully it's now. And what Senator Bettencourt has sounds like a good way to find out if we can just get it moved through the process.
Now, a constitutional amendment, of course, is different from a regular bill in terms of what you need to pass it. So, with that being said, how confident are you this will pass the House? I believe it's a two-thirds majority that's required.
It takes 100 votes in the House, 21 in the Senate, and if it passes both the House and the Senate, it goes straight to the people for a vote, so it doesn't go to the governor for a signature. I don't know. I'd have to kind of poll my colleagues here. We get some pushback from some of the entertainment industry, some of the outdoor entertainment. They like the longer hours in the summer because it keeps people outside and helps commerce and helps the economy in their towns. And so there will be some pushback. And so it just depends on how serious that is, and what those representatives in those areas feel. And so it's not a black and white issue. It's not clear cut as you would think, with a state as large and diverse as we are. And so if everybody believed like East Texans, I think it would be an even better state to live in. But as good as we are, we're still the best. But if everybody was like East Texans, we would be even better. So, but I'm looking forward to the conversation and seeing how it plays out.
And what let me ask you specifically, how do you feel this could impact, the economy if it were to pass, either daylight saving or standard time, if there were
You
to be
know,
that?
Yeah, and I don't know. I get up fairly early in the morning, so it doesn't really affect me or my business. Construction industry, they start early. I don't see it would hurt, affect the construction industry. The farmers, used to maybe back in the old days, it would affect farmers to some degree. But I think just the entertainment industry and some of the outdoor amusement parks and things, they have concerns with it. And they, they're in an area that have a lot of representation in those urban areas. And so that's one of those things where urban versus rural kind of comes into conflict. They're good folks, they're representing their districts. And so we'll just kind of have to see where the numbers are and how the conversation goes. That's a good thing about our process down here. Things get talked about, things get debated, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we try to come to a good place of consensus. And so maybe this will get the conversation rolling.
And, I asked you specifically about the economy, but overall, if this were to pass either daylight saving or standard time, what impact you feel would have on Texans?
I don't, as far as I know, from my view, I don't see where it would have a drastic impact. There may be some pockets, like I'm talking about with the amusement parks or certain industries, but I think for the most part, it's not going to make a whole lot of difference. And so, the days naturally get longer in the summer and they get shorter in the wintertime. And so, uh, to me, it makes sense to leave it one way or the other. So, like I said, that's what we have a lot of smart people here. This bill it'll be laid out in committee. It'll be debated. We'll have people come speak for and against it. It'll be debated on the Senate floor. Hopefully, come over to the House and get some conversations going here, and we can figure out, work through those questions, and kind of figure it out and make the decision that best suits our folks.